ALS and side effects Django. I'm wondering if it's considered okay, particularly in Django, to have a URL that's only intended for actions with side effects, that's only intended to be accessed by post, and that is basically invisible to the user. Let's say, for the sake of making this concrete, I have a little messaging system on my site, and from their inbox, a user should be able to do a bunch of things like delete a message, mark a message as read, report a message as spam, with all of those things causing a page refresh, but leading back to the same page. I'm wondering how to design my ALS and views around this. I see at least two options, and I have no idea which is more idiomatic. Option 1. Have a separate URL and view for each action. So, /inbox/delete message /maps to views.delete_message, and so on. At the end of each of those views, it redirects back to /inbox/. I like the way things are clearly separated with this option. If a user somehow finds themselves sending a GET request to /inbox/delete message/ that presents a sort of weird situation, though, do I throw up an error page? Silently redirect them. Option 2. Use the same URL and view for each action, and have a post parameter that identifies the action. So I would have one rather long inbox view, which would have a bunch of if statements testing whether request.post action == delete or request.post delete == true or whatever. This option feels less clean to me, but I also feel like it's more common. Which will be preferred by Django nodes? Or is there another option that's better than either of the above?
I don't think there's anything wrong with either option, but number 2 is potentially better from a performance standpoint. After the action is posted, you can render the inbox without a redirect, so it cuts down on the HTTP traffic.
I agree that number 2 is a better approach. But take care with overloading the submit with different methods. If a user is using it with keyboard input and hits enter, it won't necessarily submit that you're expecting. Either disable auto-submit on enter, or code things up so that if there is more than one thing that submit can do, there's another field that sets what the action should be, e.g. a delete checkbox, which is tested during a request.post. If you went with number 1, I'd say that a get to a post-only view should be met with a 405, method not supported, or, failing that, a 404.
If you're writing a Web 2.0 messaging app, you would be using AJAX calls and wouldn't be loading a new page at all. The process would proceed like so. User clicks delete for a message. This button has a JavaScript action bound to it. This action does the following. I change the UI to indicate that something is happening, gray the message or put up an hourglass. 2. Send a request to. Where 1234 is some identifier that indicates which message. 3. When the response from the server comes back, it should indicate success or failure. Reflect the status in the current UI. For example, on success, refresh the inbox view, or just remove the deleted item. On the server side, now you can create a URL handler for each desired action, i.e. /delete, /flag, etc. If want to use an even more RESTful approach, you would use the HTTP action itself to indicate the action to perform. So instead of including delete in your URL, it would be in the action. So instead of get or post, use delete /messages /inbox /1234. To set a flag for having been read, use set /messages /inbox /1234 $read = true. I don't know how straightforward it is in Django to implement this latter recommendation, but in general, it's a good idea to utilize the protocol, in this case HTTP, rather than work around it by encoding your actions into a URL or parameter.
A modified option number 1 is the best approach. Consider this. Suppose we weren't talking about a web app, but instead we're just designing an inbox class. Which do you like better, a number of methods, delete _message, mark for spam, etc., or one big method, do _stuff action? Of course you would use the separate methods. A separate URL for each action, each with a separate view, is far preferable. If you don't like the redirect at the end, then don't use it. Instead, have a render _inbox request method that returns a response, and call the method at the end of each of your views. Of course, redirecting after a post is a good way to prevent double actions, and always leaves the user with a consistent URL. Even better might be to use AJAX to hide the actions, but that is more involved.
If you want to support the channel, please consider liking and subscribing.